Question: what do you think about the BB8 function model? I personally feel it is detrimental to typing as people focus far too much on tricksters and such. Lovely question. Okay. I believe in BB's 8 function model. The reason why I believe in it is because I went to profiler training. I went through the profiler training courses and everything like that at Personality Hacker. I've hung out with Joel and Antonia several times, and I don't care what other people say. From being with them in real life, they are the real deal. They profile so many people. They try their best to really be as unbiased as possible. They're not afraid to say when they've gotten something wrong, and they really hone in on their craft. They reach out to people like Dario Nardi. They actually hung out with Beebe. They were coached by him on the 8 function model, and they actually put out a podcast on it. And then they hosted, like, just a few months ago, I think back in like September or August, they taught us the 8 function model after they were coached by Beebe for weeks or months. And then after that, even they were like waiting to be able to understand it for themselves. So they taught us enough in the class to be able to be like, okay, no, there's some validity here. And they were even still learning too, to the point where it's like, so there was like maybe like 50 of us in the class, and they were doing things like, okay, so this is the trickster function or whatever like that. And they explain what the archetype of that function is and what it does. And then they're like, all right, you guys are going to break out into different groups of 2 to 3, and you're all going to explain based on what type that you are, like how you relate to these functions. And then we're going to have some people share. So now we're all learning about this model as a group. And there were some really interesting insights for me to be able to be like, okay, this stuff is legit, fair. But one thing that Antonia and Joel made very, very, very clear, and they emphasized it very heavily, is we should not use the 8 function model when it comes to typing. They emphasized this very heavily. One might say, then why the heck do they teach it? I think they were just trying to get us familiar with it, something to just kind of like keep in mind, stuff like that. They'll probably have a better reason if you were to ask them, whatever. But they emphasize not to use that for profiling. And me, even as a professional profiler, I don't use that. I do not think about the shadow functions and stuff like that when it comes to profiling, because there's so much already to look at with the original 4-function stack. You have to know the facets first of that stack. If you are still thinking that TE is just all about barking orders at people and just saying like, oh yeah, this textbook says that this is what this is, so therefore that's it, and it's like mean and abrasive in that way, then you have a very limited perspective of what TE can look like. And therefore, that's why you are probably typing people in the wrong manner. And now you're succumbing to like looking at the shadow functions or whatever like that. Or if you're still limited in like, oh, SE DOMs cannot be into philosophy and a whole bunch of like other stuff, then it's like, of course you're going to now start trying to like look at the shadow functions. Like, yeah, your shadow function, you're going to try to make some type of like explanation over there. And personally, like, no offense to the people who use shadow functions for their typing, but I think that just causes more problems. I think it does more harm than it does good. That's my take on it. I think that they exist, sure, but I feel like you really need to know what you're talking about. Like, seriously, like you have to coach hundreds of people personally and understand how it really looks like for them before you can start using that to actually like profile people. That's what I think. And even then, I still don't think that you need to use it to profile people. I feel like there's enough information with that first 4-function stack. Why are we now looking at all 8? That's just my opinion for right now. But I do think that it's there. Not using it for typing. Oh yeah, back to the BB's model. Yeah, it's a good tool, but it messes up typing. Yeah, I agree. I feel like I profiled somebody recently, or a couple months ago, who thought they were an ESTP. I mean, thought they were an INFJ for the longest. I've always made room for the person to and believe like, hey, like they are an INFJ, but just a really interesting INFJ that's impulsive and uh, abrasive in speech and really TI heavy and very good at snowboarding and a whole bunch of other SE things. But I guess it's not impossible. Okay. But then other people started telling me that, oh, I just really don't, credible sources too. Like, I don't think that person's an INFJ. I was like, you know what? Let me just figure out once and for all. For my own TI, let me just profile them. The person's a good friend of mine too. So when I profiled them, then we came to the conclusion thankfully they were so open-minded. And they're like, we found out they're actually an ESTP. And their friends apparently were like, no, we don't buy that. We don't buy that. Because they had so much of like an intuitive bias. And it's like, I know you thought that you were an intuitive dominant, your friend was an intuitive dominant, and now you're finding out they're an intuitive inferior. But this should just go to show how much more we need to expand our view on these things. Like, why is it easier for us to believe that an INFJ could be so good at these SE things, but we can't believe that an ESTP can be good at these NI things? It goes right back to the Spencer James thing from All American. Like, why is it so easy for us to be like, yeah, the INFJ could be the star football player of the team, not just a great football player, but the star football player of the whole entire country. But no, an ISFP is not capable of caring for their community that deeply and actually being able to detect when somebody else is like having like a bad day or something like that. Miss me. I don't like that. So yeah. But the reason why I brought that story up was because that person had ended up getting typed by someone else as well, and that profiler, I respect them as a profiler, but when I heard about that session, I was like they're like the ESTP was like, yeah, the person used shadow functions, and like was like looking at my like this and that and that, and so they really think that I'm an ENTP and all of that, and I was just like, no, I think that they just have a limited view on how sensors can show up with intuition. I don't think that you're an ENTP. So I don't know. Like every type is good at what they're good at, and we have to hold space for that. Hey, I just wanted to briefly thank you for taking the time to watch this video, whether it was on regular speed or 2 times speed, whatever it was. Just thank you for consuming the content. And around me, you should be able to see a few little buttons and logos for other recommended videos, because I make good content, new ones, but then I also have some really good old content too that you should probably check out. But make sure that if you really like this video, feel free to subscribe, to share. It really helps this humble channel to expand and reach more people and ultimately help more people. So once again, thanks for watching, and hope you have a